I don't know that I really have an answer for the fans. I think, I have to answer to our team, and our franchise. And we're trying to win ball games. We're not trying to appease the masses.
Stephanie White just stood at a podium, microphone in her face, cameras rolling, and told the entire fan base of the Indiana Fever that she does not have an answer for them. Not a bad answer, not a wrong answer, no answer at all. And she said it the same night that Caitlin Clark, the player Stephanie White has been misusing, benching, and systematically shrinking since the moment she walked through that locker room door. Hit a game-winning shot to save a franchise that was quietly bleeding out under this coaching staff's watch. That is what happened. That is the undeniable, brutal, unavoidable reality sitting at the center of this story. Caitlin Clark saved Stephanie White's job last night, and Stephanie White's response was to walk to the podium and dismiss the fans who made that moment matter. Welcome back, this is Ream Run, and today we are documenting the moment a head coach publicly confirmed what everyone watching has already known, that she does not understand the assignment, does not respect the audience, and is actively, catastrophically mismanaging the most important player this league has seen in a generation.
I don't know that the noise is ever going to be quiet. This is what Caitlin does. She makes big shots and she has big moments, and I think when you have a player like her, it's very easy for people to just take it for granted.
Let me make sure you understand the full weight of what we are dealing with before we go any further, because the surface level story, coach says something tone deaf at a presser, does not begin to capture what is actually happening inside this Indiana Fever organization right now. This is a team that not long ago was playing fast, playing free, and playing in front of sold-out buildings. Ticket sales were jumping off the shelves. Ratings were booming. The energy around this franchise was unlike anything the WNBA had seen in years, maybe ever. That was the Caitlin Clark effect in full bloom. A player so singular, so magnetic, so genuinely must-watch that she dragged an entire professional league into a new stratosphere of relevance. And the people in charge of that franchise had one job, protect the asset. Build around the asset, let the asset breathe. Instead, they hired Stephanie White. And since Stephanie White arrived, this Indiana Fever team scored 78 points in the game we are discussing tonight. 78. The same offense that was pushing toward 100 points a night before she got there. Gutted, hollowed out, reduced to a grinding, joyless, half-empty arena slog that nobody wants to watch and nobody can defend. The attendance is dropping, the energy is gone, and the woman responsible for all of it walked to the podium last night and told you she does not have an answer for the fans. Let that sit with you for a second. Let that actually land.
It's very easy for people to just take it for granted and to think that everything that she does is always going to be.
You the one taking it for granted. You the one not using her right.
Now let me walk you through exactly what happened, because there are two separate Stephanie White press conference moments from this game that you need to understand, one before the game and one after, and both of them are damning in completely different ways. Before the game, a reporter asked Stephanie White a straightforward question. The fans are frustrated. They want to see Caitlin Clark with the ball more. They want to see the offense flowing through her. What is your answer to those fans? That is the question. It is not a trick question. It is not an ambush. It is the single most obvious question any coach of this team is going to face, because Caitlin Clark is the reason those fans are in the building, the reason the television deals got renegotiated, the reason the salary cap went up, the reason every player on that roster is getting paid more than they would have been paid in a world where Caitlin Clark chose a different team. That is just the mathematical, undeniable truth of the situation. And Stephanie White's answer, her actual on-camera, microphone-in-face answer, was that she does not know that she really has an answer for the fans, that she has to answer to the team and the franchise, that they are trying to win ball games, that they are not trying to appease the masses. Not trying to appease the masses, that is the phrase, that is the reveal. Because here is what Stephanie White either does not understand or does not care to understand. The masses she is refusing to appease are the same masses who filled those arenas. The same masses who drove the ratings, that funded the raises, that paid the players that Stephanie White is now drawing up plays for. You cannot separate the entertainment value from the financial reality of this league. You cannot cash the checks that Caitlin Clark's star power generated and then stand at a podium and tell her fans that you are not in the business of appeasing them. That is not a coaching philosophy, that is a betrayal. And I want to be entirely clear about something before we go further. Nobody is asking Stephanie White to sacrifice winning for entertainment. Nobody. The argument, the real, honest, legitimate argument is that you can do both. You can win games and be entertaining. You can run an offense through your most gifted playmaker and still play defense. You can let Caitlin Clark cook and still compete at a high level. We know this is possible because we watched it happen during her rookie season post-Olympic break, when this team was winning ball games and the ratings were booming and the buildings were packed and the tickets were selling out. Winning and entertaining at the same time. It was not complicated. Stephanie White made it complicated. Don't take my word for it. Here is Stephanie White, cameras rolling before the game, saying exactly what she thinks about the fans who are paying for all of this.
I don't know that I really have an answer for the fans. I think, I have to answer to our team, and our franchise. And we're trying to win ball games. We're not trying to appease the masses.
She said it with cameras rolling. I don't know that I really have an answer for the fans. I have to answer to our team and our franchise. We're not trying to appease the masses. That is the head coach of the Indiana Fever, in her own words, telling the people who built this moment that they do not matter to her decision-making process. There is no spin to put on that. There is no charitable reading of that quote. That is a coach who has fundamentally misread her situation, and she said it out loud, on purpose, with full confidence that she was saying the right thing. That is what makes it so alarming. Now let us get into the tactical reality of what Stephanie White has actually done to this offense, because the dismissal of the fans is one layer of this story. The destruction of the on-court product is a completely separate and equally damning layer, and both of them need to be documented. The Indiana Fever before Stephanie White had a system that worked. It was not complicated, it was not revolutionary. It was Caitlin Clark running the offense, Aaliyah Boston in the pick and roll, Kelsey Mitchell as the catch and shoot option on the weak side, the team getting up and down in transition, playing fast, playing free, scoring points. That was the formula, it was working, the fans loved it, the ratings reflected it, the attendance reflected it, and then Stephanie White came in and dismantled it. She slowed the pace, she tightened the rotation. She started sitting Caitlin Clark for extended stretches, 7 minutes at a time, including a stretch in the second quarter of a game where she pulled her 30 seconds into the period. 30 seconds. You sub your generational talent 30 seconds into a quarter. And then you wonder why the building is half empty. And then you wonder why the ratings are softening. And then you stand at a podium and tell the fans you do not have an answer for them. The cause and the effect are not mysterious here. They are direct, they are traceable, and Stephanie White is the cause. Let me talk about Lexi Hull for a moment, because this is a detail that tells you everything about what has changed under this coaching staff. Lexi Hull, a player who was getting meaningful minutes in the previous system, contributing, being used, is now barely getting run under Stephanie White. The rotation has been reshuffled in ways that do not obviously serve the team's best interests, and the players who fit the old system, the system that was working, are being phased out in favor of whatever Stephanie White is trying to build. And what is she trying to build? 78 points against Washington tells you what she is building. A team that grinds, a team that plods, a team that nobody outside of the most hardcore basketball analyst wants to watch for 2.5 hours on a weeknight. And I want you to think about the broader implication of that, because this is not just a basketball problem, this is a brand problem. Caitlin Clark is not just a basketball player. Every single person watching this video understands that. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenon. She is a cultural moment. She is the player who made casual sports fans, people who had never watched a single WNBA game in their lives, tune in, buy tickets, buy jerseys, follow the league on social media. That is an extraordinary once-in-a-generation thing. And Stephanie White is actively, systematically, with full authority and zero accountability, eroding it. You do not get to inherit the Clark effect and then run a system that suffocates it and then act confused when the numbers start to slip. The attendance dropping at Indiana Fever games is not a coincidence. It is a direct consequence of a coaching philosophy that treats the most entertaining player in the league as a rotation piece rather than the centerpiece she is. And the people sitting in those half-empty arenas know it. The people yelling at their televisions know it. The fans who are frustrated, the ones Stephanie White just told she has no answer for, they know exactly what they are watching, and what they are watching is a talent being wasted.
I don't know that the noise is ever going to be quiet. This is what Caitlin does. She makes big shots and she has big moments, and I think when you have a player like her, it's very easy for people to just take it for granted.
Now we get to the second press conference moment from last night, and this one is different from the first. The first one was dismissive. The second one is something closer to deliberately misleading, and I want to walk you through why. Caitlin Clark hit a game-winning shot. Let me say that again. Caitlin Clark hit a game-winning shot. In a close game against Washington, with the pressure fully on, she delivered. She made the big play. She did what generational players do. She rose to the moment when the moment was biggest. That is the story. That is the undeniable, cinematic, emotionally resonant story that every fan in that building and every person watching at home was there to witness. And when Stephanie White walked to the podium after that game, she had one job. One. Acknowledge what Caitlin Clark did. Give her the credit she earned. Say her name, say what she did, let the moment be what it was. That is it. That is the entire job of a head coach in a post-game press conference after your star player hits a game-winning shot. Instead, Stephanie White spent a significant portion of her post-game remarks talking about Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell in a game where Caitlin Clark hit the game winner. And here is the thing, this is not an attack on Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell is a fine basketball player. But the selective deployment of her name is what reveals the agenda at work here. Because in a previous game against the New York Liberty, when Kelsey Mitchell was out there jacking up shots and struggling, Stephanie White refused to say her name at the podium. She went with the broad team framing. We had tunnel vision as a team. We need to be better collectively. The kind of vague, nobody gets singled out coaching speak that coaches use when they do not want to name names. But then Caitlin Clark hits a game-winning shot, and suddenly Stephanie White is very interested in talking about Kelsey Mitchell's role in the play. She found Kelsey found her balance. Kelsey made the layup. These are all winning plays. Over and over, Kelsey Mitchell's name in a moment that belonged entirely to Caitlin Clark. The inconsistency is glaring, it is baffling, and it is not accidental. Here is the second receipt from last night's postgame. Listen to how Stephanie White describes what Caitlin Clark means to this team, and listen carefully to how she keeps threading Kelsey Mitchell's name into the answer, even when the question was specifically about Caitlin Clark.
It's very easy for people to just take it for granted and to think that everything that she does is always going to be.
You the one taking it for granted. You the one not using her right.
She said it right there, in an answer about what Caitlin Clark means to this team, about what a moment like that game winner does for the franchise. Stephanie White found a way to make it about the pass to Kelsey. Every opportunity she gets to hit a shot like that, or to get a stop, or to get a pass like she did to Kelsey, that is the framing. Even Caitlin Clark's heroism gets filtered through what it meant for someone else. That is the pattern. That is the tell. And now that you have seen it twice, once before the game, once after, you cannot unsee it. Let me now render the full verdict on what is happening here, because I think the picture is clear enough that we can call it directly. Stephanie White has a Caitlin Clark problem. Not in the sense that Caitlin Clark is difficult or demanding or hard to coach. There is zero evidence of any of that. The problem is that Stephanie White does not appear to know how to center a coaching philosophy around a player of Caitlin Clark's type. Caitlin Clark is a ball-dominant, high-usage, high-volume playmaker who needs the offense built around her movement, her reads, her ability to create for herself and others. That is how she operates at her peak. That is what we saw during the stretch of basketball that made this league explode in popularity. And Stephanie White's system, slower, more deliberate, more rotation heavy, is fundamentally incompatible with that style of play. And the result is 78 points. The result is half-empty arenas. The result is a head coach standing at a podium telling the fans who built this moment that she does not have an answer for them. Now let me talk about what Stephanie White said when asked whether a game-winning shot like Caitlin Clark's could quiet the noise around the team. Her answer was that she does not know that the noise is ever going to be quiet, and she is right about that. But what she does not seem to understand is why the noise exists. The noise is not irrational fan frustration. The noise is not people being unreasonable. The noise is the sound of an audience watching a priceless instrument being played out of tune by someone who does not fully appreciate what they are holding. Think about the responsibility that comes with coaching Caitlin Clark. Think about what that actually means. You are not just coaching a basketball player, you are the steward of the most significant individual talent this league has produced in its modern era. You are the person responsible for making sure that talent reaches its full expression, that the fans who showed up to see it get to see it, that the investment the league has made in building around this player pays off. That is an enormous responsibility. And the conversation that nobody on television will have directly is that Stephanie White, based on everything we have seen and everything she has said, may not be equipped to carry it. The subbing patterns alone should disqualify her from the benefit of the doubt. Sitting Caitlin Clark for 7 consecutive minutes in a game, pulling her 30 seconds into a second quarter. Not challenging foul calls when they pile up on your franchise player. These are not strategic decisions. These are the decisions of a coaching staff that either does not understand the asset they are managing or does not prioritize its protection the way it should be prioritized. And when the fans react to those decisions, when they get frustrated, when they yell at their televisions, when they flood social media with complaints, the correct response from the head coach is not, "I don't know that I really have an answer for the fans." The correct response is accountability, adjustment, evidence that you hear the concern and you are going to address it. Instead, Stephanie White told them she answers to the team and the franchise, not the fans, not the paying consumer, not the audience that made all of this possible. The team and the franchise. And here is the brutal irony of that framing. The team and the franchise are only as valuable as the fan investment that supports them. You cannot separate those things. The franchise is worth what it is worth because of the fans. The team gets paid what it gets paid because of the fans. And when you tell those fans that you are not trying to appease them, you are not demonstrating coaching independence. You are demonstrating a fundamental misunderstanding of the ecosystem you operate inside. Now, let me be direct about where this goes from here, because I think the trajectory is important and I think it is predictable. Here is what I believe happens next. The attendance numbers continue to slide if the product does not change. You cannot run a slow, grinding, low-scoring offense through a player base that showed up specifically because of the speed and creativity and entertainment value that Caitlin Clark brings and expect those fans to stay patient indefinitely. They will not. They are already showing signs of fatigue, and the half-empty arena that showed up for this game is a warning sign that cannot be ignored. Here is what I also believe. Caitlin Clark is going to keep doing what Caitlin Clark does. She is going to keep making big shots. She is going to keep rising to big moments. She is going to keep being the player that she is, because that is who she is, and no coaching philosophy and no rotation decision and no post-game press conference framing can change the fundamental nature of a generational talent. Last night proved that, in the biggest moment of the game, with everything on the line, Caitlin Clark delivered. Not because the system set her up perfectly, not because Stephanie White drew up the perfect play. It was assistant coach Austin Kelly who drew up the play, which is its own footnote worth sitting with. Caitlin Clark delivered because that is what she does. She is a closer, she is a winner. She is the player you want with the ball when the game is on the line. And the question that every single person watching this video has to sit with is this: how much longer does a player of that caliber have to carry a coaching staff that is not serving her? How many game-winning shots does she have to hit before the organization looks at the full picture, the attendance, the scoring, the fan sentiment, the press conference moments, and makes the decision that needs to be made? Let me also address the assistant coach angle directly because it matters. The game-winning play last night was drawn up by Austin Kelly, not Stephanie White. Austin Kelly. And I want to be precise here. I am not saying Stephanie White would never draw up a play for Caitlin Clark. I am saying that the pattern of decision making we have observed, the way the offense has been structured, the way the ball movement has been designed, the way Caitlin Clark has been deployed in late game situations, all of it suggests a coaching philosophy that does not consistently put Caitlin Clark in the best position to succeed. And when the one play that actually worked, the one play that actually got Caitlin Clark the ball in a position to win the game, was designed by the assistant coach, that is a detail worth noting. That is a data point in the larger pattern. The larger pattern is this: Stephanie White arrived and the offense got worse. Stephanie White arrived and the attendance started dropping. Stephanie White arrived and the team that was winning ball games and entertaining fans simultaneously became a team that grinds to 78 points and plays in front of half-empty buildings. And Stephanie White's response to all of that, her public, on-camera, undeniable response, is that she does not have an answer for the fans, and that she is not trying to appease the masses. I want you to think about what it means for Caitlin Clark to operate inside that environment. Think about what it actually costs a player, mentally, emotionally, professionally, to be the person holding the franchise together while the coaching staff above her is making decisions that undercut her at every turn. She gets benched for 7 minutes at a stretch. She gets subbed out 30 seconds into a quarter. Foul calls pile up on her and the bench does not challenge them. The offense gets slowed to a pace that does not suit her game, and through all of it, she shows up, she competes, she makes the big shot when the big shot needs to be made. She does the work night after night in a system that is not built for her, and she finds a way to be great anyway. That is not a coaching success story. That is a player overcoming her coaching situation. And there is a meaningful difference between those two things. The most telling line from Stephanie White's entire post-game press conference, the line that the conversation on television will skip right past because it is too uncomfortable to sit with, was when she acknowledged that it is very easy to take a player like Caitlin Clark for granted. She said it herself, and she is right. It is easy to take her for granted. It is easy to assume that she is just going to step up and make the big play every time, that the game winner is always going to be there, that the generational talent is going to bail you out regardless of the system she is playing in. It is easy to take that for granted. And right now, based on everything we have seen and everything Stephanie White has said, that is exactly what is happening. Here is the clip that nobody on the post-game broadcast lingered on long enough. Here is Stephanie White, in her own words, admitting that players like Caitlin Clark get taken for granted, while simultaneously demonstrating exactly what that looks like in practice. It's very easy for people to just take it for granted and to think that everything she does is always going to be there. She said it. The coach who is benching Caitlin Clark for 7 minutes at a time, who is not drawing up plays for her in the fourth quarter, who is standing at a podium telling fans she has no answer for them, that coach is warning everyone else about taking Caitlin Clark for granted. The irony is so complete, so absolute, so utterly undeniable that it almost does not need commentary, but it does need to be said out loud. The person most visibly taking Caitlin Clark for granted right now is the head coach of the Indiana Fever, and that is the verdict. That is the full documented on-camera, receipts-in-hand verdict on Stephanie White's management of this situation. She dismissed the fans before the game, she diluted the credit after the game, she built a system that produced 78 points and half-empty arenas, she set her franchise player for stretches that no competitive coaching staff should be comfortable with, and she did all of it while publicly warning everyone else about the dangers of taking generational talent for granted. Caitlin Clark is still Caitlin Clark. She is still hitting the game winners, she is still rising to the biggest moments, she is still the most must-watch player in this league, and she is proving it even inside a system that is not optimized for her. Imagine what she looks like in a system that is. Imagine what the attendance looks like, imagine what the ratings look like, imagine what the energy inside those arenas looks like when the offense is built around her movement, her reads, her ability to create and close. We have seen that version, we watched it happen, we know what it produces. And the only thing standing between the Indiana Fever and that version of basketball right now is the coaching staff's willingness to acknowledge what is obvious to everyone watching from the outside. The fans know it, the attendance numbers know it, the scoreboard sitting at 78 points knows it, and now Stephanie White's own words, on camera before the game and after it, have made it undeniable. She does not have an answer for the fans, she is not trying to appease the masses, she is trying to win ball games. 78 points, half-empty arenas, a game winner drawn up by the assistant coach. That is what trying to win ball games looks like under Stephanie White, and the fans who built this moment deserve better than that. Here is the forced choice question I want you to answer in the comments right now, and I want you to be specific, because this matters. Do you believe Stephanie White is capable of adjusting her system to properly center Caitlin Clark? Or has everything we have seen and heard this season already told us that this coaching staff and this player are fundamentally incompatible? That is the question. Not whether you like Stephanie White, not whether you want her to fail, the specific basketball question. Can she adjust, or is the damage already done? Get in the comments, tell me where you stand. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss a single video. We are on this story every single day and we are not letting up. This is Rim Run, and we will see you in the next one.